Hello, this is Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and this podcast series is called Aging Like a Guru. Who, me? Yep, and yep, me and you. As I've been talking about Virginia passing, and some of my other friends, Harold and Maud, who are 90 or close to 90 and are transitioning from their house, I'm more conscious of the fact that I am aging too, and I am in this process that they're in. And I can imagine that I'm in an earlier stage of this process, but I could be at the later stages. I don't know when I'm going to die, so I don't know anything. But when I am aware, become conscious, more conscious of myself in relation to Virginia and Harold and Maud and the processes that they're going through, I'm affected by that. And as I was saying in the last podcast, is like we're affected by people's dying, and to be aware of that and conscious of that, not in terms of a bad or wrong or shoulds, but it's like we have an opportunity to be more conscious in how we be in the world and be with people as they're passing, but also in our inevitability, in the inevitable evolution of ourselves into our passing. So that's an interesting unfolding. And a friend of mine said the other day, which I'm going to take her up on it, she says, Rosie, your next book, I think, is Dying Like a Guru. And so I think that's true, because a number of these podcasts are focusing on and attending to that element, that aspect of life that's about our ending. And it's not something that's like a horrible, terrible thing. It just is. Dying happens. And so in this process of consciously being aware of our passing, the passing of friends, or the evolution of that, or of our parents, or even of our children, this is a part of life that we, at least in the United States, we don't pay much attention to. We just kind of go, yeah, it happens, and then we get on with it, as opposed to, no, this is this is sacred. I'm laughing because we just have no sense of sanctity and sacredness about our humanness. Very rarely do we experience ourselves as sacred beings in this world, in this mundane world. But that's how I'm seeing us, and these podcasts are about, like, me at least getting real about that process. So one of the things that so I mentioned my friend Virginia died, and shortly after that, I got an email from the person who's the executor of her will, and it was just the level of clarity and organization that Virginia had and what was going to be happening with all of her belongings was so bada bing, bada boom, that the executor was like, hey, I went in to Virginia's home and cleaned out the refrigerator, took out the trash, and that's pretty much it for now. And the deconstruction of her home will take place over the next few weeks or months in terms of what's going to happen to her home. She's got it all set up that her home is going to be given back to Opal, which is an organization that helps people with housing here on the island. And then all of her belongings are already, most of them are already designated to people in terms of gifts or donations or those kinds of things. But I was affected by the fact that there's a deconstruction. I use that word, the deconstruction of this person's life and who they were, their what they surrounded themselves with, the dismantling of this person's life, and it gets dispersed into the world. And they, in a sense, her home or her center, or as a friend of mine put, the center of gravity is no longer there. And so without her there, all of her belongings disperse into the ethers, into the universe, either at the trash heap, the garbage, or in the loving care of people who cared for her, or to the exchange or, Goodwill, where things will go. But it's that dismantling. I just found this really an interesting moment for myself to go, what it takes to dismantle a person's life is pretty extraordinary if you think about it. I know my dad spent months dispersing of his sister's stuff. She was alone basically, and she died, and so her house was just full of stuff. And my dad was her executor, and he went through papers and stuff. And I know this is true for a lot of people who have to go through their parents' stuff and throw it out or give it away. But there's this dismantling of this individual's reality where it doesn't exist anymore. In a sense, it doesn't exist as this center of gravity, this center of presence we'll call Virginia, or the center of presence of somebody's father or mother. It's like it's gone, and the disbursement of their material expression also disperses. And I don't know. I just know that is it happens for everybody. It happens for anybody. And every one of us has that relationship with stuff. And at some point that's going to be gone, because the center of gravity for that stuff won't exist in me or in you. And so I think it's an interesting orientation. And a lot of people will say, well, I want this of Virginia because I want to remember her. Or I want this of my dad, or I want this of my mom because I want to remember her. Or I want the house, or I want the property, or I want, because of the money or what the power, or the, just the material investments or whatever it is. But the individual attached to those things, in a sense, can be an element of that tangible material piece. However, I think it's as much in the ethers. In a sense, I really believe no one dies, that we just transition over onto the other side, and we always have access to those people and that energy of that person. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that in this particular podcast, that there is this process of dematerializing an individual, and the in a sense, they leave their body. Here's the body they've left, and that place of, okay, here's the body. We're going to disperse of this body. We're going to disperse of this body of material world that this person's been living in and with for however many years. And that disbursement is an interesting element of the process of living and the process of dying, I think, and the defragging of the world of this identity and this being. So that's pretty much it. All right, I'll talk to you again very soon. Bye for now.